Hey, good morning, everybody. This is your video for week one lecture. I've just been through the lecture again, and I think it's pretty straightforward. As straightforward as it can be when we're kind of looking at troubling categories and ideologies that have often been reified and taken as givens and as absolute truths. But the discussion in the lecture, if you read through it, really shows traces sort of feminism through the waves and then really gets into the nitty gritty of like bodies, sex, gender, and how our ideas about those things have sort of evolved over time and where they've changed and how they've changed. And while this is not necessarily always reflected in our social body, certainly it's true of feminists who are really sort of digging around and trying to take apart what what do we mean when we talk about gender, and what comes first, gender or sex, and what for a long time it was sex. Lots of theorists now believe that gender is the determining sort of uh, place from which our ideas about sex, you know, come from. Um, I think, when we think about gender as being really fluid, um, and, in the lecture, it talks about the performativity of gender and how we talked about this for those of you who've been in my 100 class. We talk about this a lot. Gender is something that we do every day. And there are particular ideas and traits and characteristics and assumptions that are made about, certainly in a heteronormative sort of context, femininity and masculinity, and what the appropriate behaviors and gestures and ways of being, mannerisms are for each. And for the most part, we know that now that it's a sliding scale, right? It's not fixed. And so inhabiting one particular kind of body does not necessarily mean that you will perform your gender in a way that has traditionally been associated with that. In fact, most of the time, we slide along the scale depending on the circumstance that we're in and the particular day. And so most of us choose every day some things about our gender that we're going to perform and signify to the world, who we are, um, consciously, unconsciously. So if you wear makeup, if you don't wear makeup, what you're going to wear is a particular meeting. So, when we think about careers and meetings and applying for jobs and advancing yourself in some ways, the choices that you're going to make about just your presentation in terms of gender will be different depending on what that particular circumstance is and how you go about um, either wearing or not wearing um, pieces of gender sort of identities that have been traditionally associated with what it means to be female or with what it means to be male. We embrace them or we reject them, and that is all context dependent. And so, for example, a woman might choose to wear a pantsuit rather than a blazer and a skirt to a particular job offer, to a particular meeting. And that signifies something specific. And while we live in a world where a lot of us take for granted the fact that women can wear pants and that women can, dress however they want to, a pantsuit still signifies a particular thing. And all we have to do is think about the last election in the States, where Hillary Clinton was her pantsuit was the topic of conversation rather than her policies, rather than what she was putting forward. It doesn't matter whether you would have voted for her or not. That's not the point I'm trying to make. I am trying to make the point that because she was a woman who was running for president of the United States, which is arguably one of the most powerful positions in the world, her pantsuit sent a particular message, and that message was received differently by different people. So those people who would have embraced the idea, maybe of a female president, might have taken that pantsuit to mean any number of things that were positive. And those who, couldn't kind of get their heads around what it might mean to have Hillary Clinton for president really focused on her pantsuit. They talked about it all the time. It was in the news all the time, which is so bizarre when we're talking about a position with that much power. So the pantsuit could take on such meaning. But what it's reflective of is ideas about what it means to be a woman and what women are capable of. Those people who are marked as women, who are perceived to be female, people, what their capabilities are. And so the way that we perform our gender absolutely impacts how the world sees us and who we are. And we signify specific things about what we're capable of and who we are by choices like that. The way that we perform our gender can have significant bearing on how we're perceived and the opportunities that we have access to, and the places that we are welcomed into. And so, on a very sort of basic level, when we think about the attributes of gender and the expectations of gender, what they've sort of historically meant or traditionally meant, the impacts are huge. Now, if we take it a step further and think about, the fact that we have largely operated in a world in sort of the Euro West, where there's only been two categories. There's only two ways of being, two kinds of bodies to inhabit, and so then any other body that wasn't strictly boxable here or boxable here, and whose gender wasn't boxable here and readily identified, or boxable here and readily identifiable, just didn't fit. But in fact, there's lots of cultures where there's like a multiplicity of genders and an acceptance of multiplicities of bodies, and an understanding that when we talk about sex, as noted in the lecture, right, if we are reduced down to sexual organs, there's still a multiplicity of ways of being. And many, many, many cultures across the planet have room for this, have space for this, and in fact, it's often embraced and rather than rejected or sort of vilified or marginalized. And so things that in the Euro West have been sort of assumed to be truths, scientific truths, and things that we have taken for granted, we're now starting to realize are not the case. And if you think about the social world that we're operating in here, just even on this campus, where we have positive space workshops and where we're talking about things like gender neutral washrooms, and we're starting to move into a cultural space where you can see that it's emerging that people are starting to undo that ideology of two boxes and two boxes only, and that we have to be able to put people in them in order to know who they are or understand what they should be allowed to do or where they should be allowed to go and what they might even be capable of. But our ideas about this stuff have been so deeply rooted for so long that this change has brought about some real discomfort for a lot of people who just don't know how to navigate. They just don't know what to do with all of this unknown. And we, in this sort of Euro-Western culture, have really thrived on being able to box people up and determine who they are and know what to expect. And this new freedom, this new openness, these new spaces have made people uncomfortable. The not knowing, the uncertainty, not being able to say for sure, has proved very difficult for a lot of people. And that there's lots of discussions around the situation with gender neutral bathrooms, for example, in schools or in public spaces, and it's in my mind, I don't even know why it matters. It's a bathroom. Everyone goes to the bathroom no matter what body you inhabit. And so why can't they all just be gender neutral? Like, why can't people just use whatever bathroom they need to use, right? I don't understand the sort of really heated, strongly held opinions about this stuff, where people are afraid to have that be an option. And that's a reflection of who I am and how I see gender, and the exploration sort of self and my ideas and my beliefs that I've done. But it's clear that these are really deeply sort of rooted ideas. And so when we start troubling them and turning them upside down and asking questions about, is this true? Is this the only way to perceive these things? I think it's a way forward in terms of social change and a really positive movement, but I think also takes people a while to catch up. And if you talk to your families or if you talk to people in your lives, there will be some people who are really, really resistant. And that's because we have believed forever that this stuff is this way. It is rooted in science. It is rooted in biology, and the unknown, and having those deeply seated beliefs sort of turned inside out have caused people to really struggle. And we see it in terms of violence against transgender folks. We see it in terms of the resistance to gender neutral bathrooms. Gender is such a tight piece of how we navigate the world that it's actually everywhere. Even though, like I said at the beginning, a lot of the time how we perform it and what we're doing with it and how it sort of is a filter for how we see the world is often largely unconscious. And so as you go through the reading and you go through the lecture, I encourage you to sort of think about um, how it operates in your life and what are those things you've taken for granted. And even when you're looking at your social media, like think about the presentation and what does that mean? Who is, really sort of camping it up and overdoing gender expectations and playing with that, and who is really challenging those kinds of things. Social media is full of examples that I think often we just scroll through, but that provide us a really great window into how our culture is operating and what we value and what we don't, where gender and sex are concerned. So that's it kind of for today. I just wanted you to have a way to kind of think about that and offer you a couple of examples. The second piece, though, of this is that I just wanted to briefly touch on the first reading response that you're going to do. Academic sources mean academic sources. So that is not like something you find on social media. It can be articles from class, right? Readings from class. It's also something you'd find like in the library, right? These are scholars. These are, perhaps peer-reviewed articles. They are books that have been published by scholars who have done the research. So you need 5 academic sources. Citation-wise and format-wise, whatever you are comfortable with is fine by me as long as you do it properly. So you choose your format and you choose your citation style. Everybody has a different one that they prefer, and so I'm okay with that. And third, follow the instructions. Don't make this reading response harder than it is. You're given sort of an outline of 4 things that you need to be thinking about or addressing in this very short sort of reading response. So just do that. That's it. Bang, 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 bang. And I don't mind if you section off your reading response. Section, with the first one with the questions and the summary, and that's fine. Really, I want you to sort of just follow the format. It will make it far easier. The biggest chunk of this really is for you to talk about how what you found impacts your understanding. Right? That's the most significant aspect of these assignments, because I'm asking you to reflect on this stuff and think about who you are in a world where this material is concerned. So if you still have questions, go ahead and email me, but I hope that clears up a little bit about the reading response. Just look at the instructions and follow it step by step. That's all you need to do. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. If you have questions, send me an email. I am going away to Vegas on Thursday. My family bought me a trip to go see some concerts. To go see, I think I told you this, maybe Enrique Iglesias, Daddy Yankee, and Mark Anthony. So there will be a few days where I'm out of the loop where email is concerned, but I will check it as soon as I'm back, and not to worry if there's a panic situation, regarding getting your paper in on time next week, because I'm going away for a couple of days. If somebody has, a freak out about not understanding or whatever, and I'm not able to answer your question, then we'll work it out between us. If you need an extra day or 2, that's okay. I won't be able to mark them all in the first 24 hours anyway. So please work on them, that said, and do the best that you can. But if something goes sideways and I can't answer you because I'm away, just don't sweat it. We'll deal with it as soon as I'm back. So I'll be back in my office on Tuesday morning, and I'll try to check from there. I just don't know, how my service is going to be or whatever. So have a really good few days, and I'll be back in touch and see you next Tuesday. Okay, take it easy. Bye.